Hello, this is Joe Boston. This another episode of Real Estate for Life. Bringing this to you from the standpoint of how do we find deals? Everyone asks me, what's the magic sauce? How do you collaborate and get deals? So, couldn't think of a better way of introducing this topic than with someone who actually does it. And so tonight we have my friend and former student, Bernard Barron, that's going to talk to us about um, wholesaling, joint venturing, and then being successful with developing a buyer's list, and then how actually the market is trending towards wholesaling, because wholesaling over the last, I'd say even 10 years has changed so much that it's really important that all of us look at different aspects of wholesaling. And one of the reasons why we want to do that is because the initial obvious thing in real estate is actually finding deals. And one of the things that I always preach and talk about is developing the skills of a wholesaler, even if you're not one or you're not, have the title of being a wholesaler. You want to have those skill sets because that will teach you how to interact with buyers and sellers, contracts, negotiations, and then also you should have the ability to ferret out and vet what the repairs are. You might not do it as much as rehabbers, but you should have a sense of doing that. And so I wanted to collaborate with someone who's doing this actively. Bernard, is well educated, electrical engineer, also spent time in the reserves and the Air Force as well as I did. And so I want to thank him for his service. And obviously, we bleed blue, so that's a very good thing.
Absolutely.
But also, he transitioned from, corporate America, military, and wanted to find himself. And just like a lot of us, we don't really know what we want to do. But I always say you should have two things, one for someone else is making their dream, but definitely something for you, which is your dream, which I always think is real estate, right? Because it's one thing that you could do to, generate a nice income, right? And many different elements and facets of real estate, and wholesaling is just one way to do it. And, I think that again, you should have the skill sets. Now, a lot of people will talk, because I'm a professed buy and holder, rehabber, and now builder, but I relied heavily on wholesalers to bring deals, right? And
Yeah,
so, thanks, Bernard, for being on. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing good. Oh, I can't tell you how proud I am. One of the things I want to note also about Bernard is when we started, he was coming to the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, and I want to say that's the one thing I organize and help lead. But Bernard attends fairly regularly, but he was before COVID, and then developed a lot of relationships throughout the group, and then also went through the training and learned a lot, but now he's kind of taken off, and a lot of people can actually fall under your wing. And so, what would you say? How long did it take for you to get your first deal? Or first wholesale deal?
I would say from the time that I decided that that's what I wanted to do to the time that I actually closed my first deal, it was probably about 6 months because the first 3 months was basically I had analysis paralysis. I mean, some of it was good because I took the time and I looked at YouTube videos. I came to Joe's meetups and took training and stuff like that. But I say from the time I took action to the time I closed my first deal was probably about 3 months. Um, I went through a few trials and tribulations on my way to my first deal. Like the first time I got a property under contract, It didn't close because there were some liens and whatnot that couldn't be removed. The second time, I had a property under contract. It didn't close because of other issues. So in my mind, I say, you know what? I'm not going to get discouraged because, this is life and life happens like that sometimes. So the third time I had a property under contract, of course, I got on contract and I found a buyer within probably a couple of days, and that one actually closed. So that was my first deal.
Okay. Was that a single family property or?
That was actually a single family house.
Okay. So, what would you say the biggest challenge is for being new to the industry? What was it for you? Was it a very eye opening to you um, to
Um,
take on doing a wholesale deal?
I'd say the biggest challenge was probably just getting the confidence to actually to do it because you kind of have to change your paradigm because when you're working for corporate America or working for somebody, you basically have someone to tell you what to do for the most part. I mean, I don't care what kind of position you have a boss. But when it's time for me to say, okay, I want to do something on my own, then if I don't motivate myself, then no one else is going to. So I basically have my why to keep me going, and so I'll say the biggest challenge is actually getting started and gaining up enough confidence in order to be able to take action. But once you do that and realize, okay, this isn't bad, then you could take off from there.
So, you mentioned your why. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. So, obviously, you're attending the meetings and developing relationships, but talk to us a little bit about your why. What made you realize it was something that you wanted to do?
Well, I have two lovely daughters, and in fact, one of them is in college right now, getting her doctorate. The other one in high school, about to graduate. I look at them and I say, you know what? I want to be able to provide the life for them that I really want to. That is, paying for college, helping them out there, getting them some of the things they want, so that they could have the lifestyle that I want them to have, and what pretty much what they're accustomed to, and actually to improve on it. So basically, my daughters, that's my why to be able to provide for them, um, give them something to drive. That's something that I don't have to worry about them driving down the street in, um, and also to pay for college.
Oh, that's great. So, I kind of mentioned that, they should all always have two things, or you should always have two things.
At least.
Are you teaching them kind of the business as well, or?
Absolutely. Well, actually, my youngest one, the one that's in high school, actually, she's into, she's entrepreneurial minded. She talks about owning her own business, and she actually want to help me with the wholesaling and real estate investment. So she's definitely going to be part of my business here. I told her, she better get a high school diploma first, but
Oh,
then,
wow.
and then my oldest daughter, she's in Alabama going to school right now, and she actually wants to be part of my business as well. Because, like I said, she's going to have a doctorate in physical therapy, and then she said, well, even though I got a good job, I still want to have something, else. And she's entrepreneur minded as well because she went to school on got a bachelor's on a full volleyball scholarship, full ride. So
Nice.
basically, exactly. And then during that time too, she gave private volleyball lessons and things of that nature. So I told her, I said, hey, you can get you a LLC and make this a business. So both of them, they kind of look at me and kind of follow my lead.
That's great. So you mentioned that it was a little intimidating. So I would say that
Oh
probably
yeah.
is the case.
And
People
I would
have
say,
fear.
yeah, and I would say too, um, especially now you got so much information. I mean, it's easy that if you don't home in on something, you can get information overload. I mean, just like you talked about the different strategies, and wholesaling is just one strategy of real estate, because you of course you have all the other ones, creative financing, buy and hold, fix and flip, or whatever. But even if you take wholesaling actually have different ways you can branch off too, because you could joint venture wholesale, you could work in acquisition, you could be an acquisitions expert, you could be a disposition expert, because it's kind of hard, and especially me as a one man band right now, it's kind of hard to do acquisition and disposition and also coordinate, because there's a lot of coordination to go in between those two activities too, and of course you have to find buyers and everything else. Um, so I would probably say that when someone look at all the moving pieces, they may get intimidated by that, because just finding buyers alone, I mean, that's a process in itself. Acquisition, that's a big process in itself. Coordination with all the activities you have to coordinate with. I mean, the title companies, the bank, or whatever, and then of course dispositions. That's kind of a big animal as well. So, but the thing is, when you just take a part of that and say, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on finding buyers, then you can also, you can talk to wholesalers who already have deals under contract. You can find buyers for them, or vice versa. So I would say that the most intimidating thing is a very build. It's a large business that have a lot of facets, but you just kind of have to home in on what your skills are and what you do best.
So would you say it's easier to develop a relationship with a wholesaler, start that way, and
That's a
then
good way to do it.
assist them?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it, because I mean, as far as finding buyers, I mean, that's basically just developing relationships, like you said. And to me, like when I used to come to your meetings, and still do, obviously. Um, Actually, I've done deals with people I've met there. So it's good to meet people, shake hands, and develop relationships. Um, that's, in my opinion, the best way to meet buyers and other wholesalers and so forth. But of course, there's a lot of stuff you can do online as well, like Facebook, Craigslist, and also if you're going to need some way to to actually pull data from. So you could pull data and find buyers that way, whether it's PropStream, Propelio, or any of the others.
Right. So you talked about disposition, right? So
Yes.
actually transitioning that property once you have it. So can you talk to us about that aspect of what you do?
Okay. I have, like myself, I have wholesale companies or wholesale people that I've developed relationships with. And, we have agreements in place that, once they have properties under contract, I can actually market those properties for them with their permission, of course. Because if you don't have their permission, of course, that's daisy chaining, and that's something you want to avoid. But so basically, I get the property, the from the wholesaler or whoever I get it from. I do my own analysis on it just to make sure that their numbers and everything match up with the same, make sure that, okay, they're giving me something that's actually a deal. Because a lot of times wholesalers and other people have um, deals they give you that aren't really, worth your time, basically. So once I establish something's a deal, I have a email list that I send out, send the deal out to. Um, you can use MailChimp. I use, a lot of people use that one, but I use Aweber. And there are others that you can use as well. So basically, I have all the email addresses that I've, gotten from people, whether I met them in person, talked to them over Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Craigslist, or just wherever. Anyway, so I have a database of email addresses that I blast that out to. Once I blast that out to them, then I receive phone calls to say, "Hey, I like this property." Then they may ask me more specific questions, and also you have to know what you're sending out to because people will ask questions. Um, so once they're interested in it and whatnot, so they're if it's a home, single family residence, they may actually ask for access to go there, or if it's a vacant lot, they may just ride by. But anyway, once the cash buyer give you an offer, you basically I would run that by like if it doesn't fit the numbers that I was sending out, I may run it by the person who has it on the contract and say, "Hey, would this number work?" Now, most of the time I would know that because they would give me the parameters that I could work through. But anyway, let's say it works and the numbers work for everybody, then I would actually do an official JV document with that particular wholesaler, and then we would send that to the title company, and then you will be in on a loop until it closed, basically. I'm not hearing you.
I said I'm very familiar with that process,
Oh, okay.
and because I get your emails, and so obviously I'm looking as well at those opportunities. But it always fascinated me about how you can develop a relationship with a wholesaler because it helps them as well, right? Have you
Absolutely, because they
have you
can.
ever had a situation where you had a buyer that was working with the primary wholesaler and yourself when you're joint venturing? Have you ever had that situation?
Um, you mean they already have interest in it, but then they give it to me
They
to ask other
correct.
people?
They might have sent maybe your primary wholesaler sent out an email, you
Right.
sent out an email, they responded to both. Would that cause a conflict? I mean, how would
It
that work?
it can, and so basically, the best thing to do is to actually, um, before you blast it out to your list, you talk to the other wholesaler, and it's best if you all have some type of agreement in place in order to, and so that you can actually market it at the same price. So that if two people receive, the email from two different people, it's at the same price point. And in
Gotcha.
that particular case, let's say, for instance, if the total wholesale fee is going to be, let's say, $10,000, you would have an agreement to say whatever we make off of it, you get 50%, I get 50%, or it could be 60-40, and I've went as low as 70-30. Um, Most people do 50-50 to 70-30, either way. But in a way, at that time, I mean, so with that being said, once you have that in place, you're only going to get you're going to get a percentage of the wholesale fee. Then there's really, it's best to market it all at the same price.
Got it. So you're saying that you can negotiate with the primary wholesaler a 50% deal where you get 50% and that wholesaler will get 50%?
Correct. Or any other
That's very
percentage um, that both people agree on.
gotcha. But what would you say the most common split is? Is it 50-50?
Um, yes, 50-50.
Oh, okay, that's good. But you do pay for your own marketing, so there's no real overlap between yourself and the primary wholesaler, correct?
Now, on the JV side of my wholesale business, absolutely. Um, in which I'm finding a buyer, I don't pay any marketing for that because at that point, the front end wholesaler actually get the property on the contract, so they don't want to do all the marketing. Um, and everything on that particular deal. And then once they get it on the contract, then they hand it off to the disposition person. Now, I do have my own deals as well that I actually send marketing out to, for. So on those deals, of course, I'm the front end wholesaler, and yes, I'm the one that I pull the list, skip trace the list. Um, I got a text messaging platform that I use that I actually put that those numbers in, and I text blast people. So I pay for all that on the deals that I get on a contract. Now there are times when I do, let's say, driving for dollars. The only thing you pay for is to skip trace those individuals. Um, I've also had some referrals. I've done somebody a good job and they've referred me to somebody else. Just like right now, I have a relationship with someone at a hard money lender. And whenever that hard money lender get people coming in looking for deals, he sent all those people, or he sent a lot of those people over to me. So that's another reason why it's good to develop relationships with different people, title companies, um, hard money lenders, other wholesalers, just anybody. This is the
It's
people
great.
business.
So I've heard of TLO. Is that who do you use for skip tracing? Is that something you can divulge?
Yeah. Basically, there's something called, oh goodness, um, well, some of the skip tracing I actually do myself, in which those techniques that you taught me a while back. But let's see. Um, Man, it's been a while actually since I skip traced the list. But it's yes, there's one called Butler skip tracing within PropStream. I use that one. That one's pretty decent. Uh, I lost audio again. I can't hear you.
I know a lot of people would want to know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you went out for a couple of minutes. Did you
Okay.
hear me say Butler skip tracing and PropStream?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So it's important to note because a lot of people, when they're trying to find an owner, right,
right,
or a point of contact for a vacant property or a distressed property or property that you was brought to you, you're trying to find and identify who is the decision maker or on the deed of record, right? So
correct.
that's why you'd want to use skip tracing because a lot of times you might not know who that person or that couple is. So it's really important to have that type of resource, right? So if you're working
Absolutely.
with
And
those.
then also too,
So
like if you just want to you just want to skip trace your onesies and twosies, you can use free services, like True People Search, Fast People Search. Um, I found buyers that way. I mean, people that way as well.
just a little nugget, one guy found me through Go Section 8, actually he would
Yeah, that's a good way to
go
find
through
people.
whoever was posting their properties and obviously we're investors, so I thought that was a really unique way of finding me, and actually he sold me a deal that way, so that's a good nugget there. So
Absolutely.
when you were starting that, what would you say is one main reason in your opinion that a new wholesaler would fail?
I would say the number one thing is they don't have enough tenacity. The thing is, you can't give up because I'm gonna tell you, it's a roller coaster. I mean, there are sometimes, of course, in the beginning where I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like, I remember one time, I think it was like just before COVID, maybe about 2 or 3 months. I had like 3 or 4 deals, like, they're just like crashed for different reasons. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let this defeat me. So like I said, once, and then after that, then I closed the next, few in a row without any issues. So it kind of balances out over time. You just got to kind of look at it that way. And also, too, you have to look at everything as a whole. I mean, nothing is as bad as it seems, and nothing, unfortunately, is as good as it seems sometimes. But to answer your question, I just think people give up too easily. They don't have enough tenacity. And once you make it up in your mind that you want to do something, you do need to do it, by all means. I mean, if you have a 9 to 5 job, I mean, you know what? You may just have to stay up to 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, like I used to do sometime. I mean, looking, just education wise, learning different systems that I use, um, tutorials, getting, data ready to text blast out the next day or whatever. But I mean, you got to kind of look at it. You can't look at it as a side hustle. You got to look at it as a business, and you got to set your goals, and you got to you just have to stick to it, and no matter how bad, and also good too. And I'm glad I had somebody like you in the beginning to encourage me because one thing you taught in your classes is that, hey, if you want to do this much, if you want to make this much, you got to do this much activity. And if you're not doing that activity, you're not on track to do what you need to do. So that's one of the things I look at. I write my goals down, and if I'm not, look at those goals every day. And if I'm not doing enough activity to make that happen, then it's up to me. I'm the CEO of my life. I need to make stuff happen.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that, the CEO of your life. But you're right. People ask me, well, why do you always do this? You don't have to do this. Well, one, I think it's a work ethic. I think two,
Exactly.
uh, with any discipline or any craft, you have to work at it. You know, I was watching obviously something on one of the social media platforms, and the gentleman said if you spend 18 minutes a day doing something every day, you will outpace 90% of the people in the world. And
Wow.
you know that says a lot. I mean, that doesn't seem like it's a whole lot of time, but I mean that's every day. But what I always say is if you spend at least 2 hours in real estate a
Mhm.
day, I mean it's very hard for you not to be successful. I think to your point is people are not zoned in on exactly what they want to do,
Right.
and so they try everything instead of specializing. And
Hmm.
one of the things we do at the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group is we try to expose you to a lot of those different types of real estate so that then you can, take it a step further with whatever you like. I think
Right.
that's important. So going back to you, what can you define your process from beginning to end? Like, what does that look like?
Okay. I'll say the beginning. The very first thing you need to select an area that you want to market to, and then once you market to there, once you identify an area, you may choose specific, area codes, well, zip codes actually. And so the next thing you need to do is to pull some data from somewhere. Um, I usually pull mine from PropStream because I pay like $100 a month, and they give me like 10,000 leads per month or whatever. So I create a list, I script trace the list, I put that in my text messaging platform, and then I send that out, text blast. Um, from that, I usually, get people responding back saying, I'm interested, I'm not interested, or go do something to yourself, or, or whatever. But you got to take the good with the bad. So, hey. So once you get somebody who seems like they're going to be a warm lead, you actually will have some conversation with that person, get further information, and say, hey, if it's okay if I give you a call and we can, talk about your, property. And let's say they want to move forward, and you give them an offer, they accept it, and you put it on the contract. And the way we do, well, the way I do it is DocuSign. I mean, that way you don't have to be in person to give somebody or to get signatures and whatever. That's pretty much, I guess, standard for the most part in this business now. People do contracts electronically, but in a way, once you get a cop, you get that on the get the property on the contract. I send it to the title company. They open title on it. During that time, I'll either already have a buyer or I'm actively marketing that particular property. It may be, yeah, so market the property. Then once I find a buyer, get the information, um, I sign the contract to them. That's if I'm doing acquisition and a disposition on a particular um, deal. So I would assign the contract to them, send out a signed assignment to the title company, and then basically at that point you just wait till it close. The title company, they run the title searches. Um, and then once everything clears, they give you clearance to close, and that's pretty much about it. You get paid.
So you mentioned you do an assignment. So are you negotiating your fee up front and discussing that with the seller, or how does that work?
Not with the seller is that I give them a price. Let's say, for instance, if they have, if I make a deal with the seller, let's say I'll give you, let's say, 150 for your property. Okay, and and of course, in order to get to that number, there are different formulas that you use. If it's a single family residence, of course, you have to take either 70%, 80%, or somewhere in between of ARV minus the repairs minus whatever you want your fee to be. Let's say, for instance, if I wanted my fee to be, let's say in this particular case, let's say $10,000, just for easy numbers, I would actually um, get on a contract, let's say for 150. So now, in order for me to make $10,000, I have to sell that contract for 160K, and I would get paid the difference between the two figures. So basically, as a wholesaler, we don't sell properties; we sell contracts.
Correct. And that's very important to note, which, I think the one thing I always mentioned is, the four things we talk about, right? Is to find the deal, fund the deal, fix the deal, and then flip the deal. And so that's one of the aspects I really like about what you're talking about is you're finding it and then you have options because like we always talked about in training is with that skill, you could actually keep it or buy it yourself, correct? I mean, you don't have to sell the paper or to someone else.
True, true. And in the beginning, most wholesalers, as well as myself, in the beginning, we may not have the money to hold on to a property or to take it down ourselves. I mean, even knowing what I know now, there are still ways that I could take it down, even if I don't have the money. I mean, I could do a hard money loan or whatever through a hard money lender, and then pay them back over time, and then refinance. And there are other ways you can do it. Um, you can actually hotel, a property. Which is kind of like you get it, you fix it up to a certain point, but then that requires money. Well, as far as points, but it's not like you paying cash for the whole thing. So it's best to have some money, but if you don't have any money whatsoever, um, you could JV and add buyers to existing deals. So the good thing about real estate is that if you got money, of course you'll be ahead of the game because you got money. And if you don't have money, you can't use that as an excuse. You just have to kind of enter into the business, doing something else, you know, um, finding buyers, for other wholesalers and things of that nature. And then as
It's really
you,
funny you mentioned that if you don't have money, well, that's why when we talked about, like we did in class, about credit, right, or access to money. So I
exactly,
want to note that it's not necessarily always about you having money. It's about having access to money.
absolutely,
That's a very important distinction, because as you're actually trying to make more money, right, when you are acquiring a property or transitioning that opportunity, I would say, and you're transitioning that to a buyer, and from the seller, obviously they've seen something that would make them believe they can either make money. They might be living in the property themselves, let's say, but
right,
more often than not, it's an investor that sees something that either lets them know, hey, this is a real profitable deal. There's something I can do with it. It's a rental. It's an ROI maker. So there's something that's there. But
hmm,
one thing I want to note is that, don't, if you look at your whole portfolio, which I talk to a lot of wholesalers, they wish they would have kept some of them. I think you also get into this, this is habit, it's habitual, right? So I got this deal, I didn't really see it, right? Because a lot of times you might not even see the deal,
right.
right? Is that true?
That's true. Absolutely.
So, I just want to say that to everyone is if you really want to do this, as you know, a return on investment strategy, you might want to start what, right, you start, but as you get good at it, like Bernard, is start looking at them to transition into a buy and hold or owner finance. I would say fix and flip, but that's transactional too. But I mean, obviously, you're making a little bit more money than negotiating the contract. So we've always talked about that. Is are there some deals you wish you would have possibly kept that you've transitioned?
I would say yes, particularly land, because I mean, at one point, land was dirt cheap, and now that same land has doubled in value. And also, a lot of people, there are people out there looking to own, to buy, on terms. So you could actually be a bank and have like a ton of land, and you could have that residual money coming in every month once and make a lot of money, just having monthly payments coming in from the land that you own.
Yeah, that was a nugget you actually shared with me. I never really thought about owner financing land. I always have, attributed that to the structure as well, the improved. But I
Exactly.
think that's valuable knowledge, Bernard. Is if you're wholesaling and joint venturing with land, you can actually put that on terms as well. And no matter where you are, right, in the country, and
Exactly.
then put that and be the bank, and then
Exactly.
continually get paid over time, which I think is really, really a good strategy. And I wish you would have told me that when you were in class. Just
I
maybe.
did. I
Oh,
kind of.
now you want to tell us.
It's just one
Yeah,
of
I
those
know.
things you just have to live, and I have to live it. To say, you know what, I'm selling all these cheap lots. I said, man, I need to hold on to some of these things, and then when I meet other people to tell me what they strap, because sometimes I talk to my buyers. I say, what are you gonna do with these? They say, oh yeah, we're gonna put mobile homes on them, and then we're gonna rent these out for blah blah blah, and all this kind of stuff. I said, wait a minute, mobile home, that's pretty cheap. The land, that's pretty cheap, but they're gonna but it draw the same what you call it, rent as a
Right.
solid structure. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in the wrong business. I'm in the wrong strategy. But that's a good thing about real estate. You can actually you can be creative. And being an engineer, I'm kind of I'm always thinking about how I could improve something,
Improve the
what I could do
process.
differently. Exactly.
Right.
And a good thing about land too is that I put it this way: all the land that I've sold, I've visited very few of it. I mean, you could do it virtually. I mean, I'm here in Fort Worth, Texas, and I said, you know what? Let me start selling some in Florida. If I wanted to, I can, or wherever, anywhere in
That's
the actually anywhere in the
that's a
world.
it's a great strategy, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I was thinking about that. You don't really think about land as something that you can actually transition because most people visually they want to see a structure. But I think now that real estate investing is so prevalent now,
Uh-huh.
more often than not, a builder sees the value in that land, and
Exactly.
so you're able to either sell that to someone else or they want to hold it. Because a lot of the name brand builders they buy land. I don't know if you knew this, but they buy land and they'll hold it for years.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And then when the market changes, then they'll build on on that land. And so it's real interesting that that's something we can do with lots
Right.
is do the same thing. Unfortunately, when that time passed, I wish we were doing it a lot more, 5, 10 years ago, like you mentioned, but there's still, and that's just in DFW, like you were saying.
Right.
We need to really take our eyes and shift them to other areas because there's still lots of opportunity out there for people to do this. And just because it's not in the city, right? In a larger MSA, you can go to areas like where you're from. I'm sure, even though Alabama now is on the map, that's
Exactly.
that location. I see in more and more with corporations moving there. Land is going to start to get more expensive.
Yeah,
Um,
and one of the newest thing people, well, don't know if it's new, but but what a lot of people are doing now, a lot of builders are looking for acreage. They may say, I want 50 to 100 acres within an hour of DFW or any other metropolitan area. And those are some of the people with the deeper pockets, obviously, because they have to do development in most of that land. But then once they develop it, I mean, they could put 100 houses or whatever they want to do, and that's something there. And then some of those people, you can, if you got money, you can actually partner with somebody who's doing the same thing.
right. Right. So the strategy is think about this, and this is one thing I learned is you divide that if it's a large tract of land into thirds. And
Hmm.
if you can sell 1/3 to get back all your investment, then the 2/3 is really just profit.
Oh yeah,
And so that's a really good strategy that you can employ with land. So, but a lot of us are afraid of large parcels of land, right? Because what are you going to do with it? Right. And typically what we were taught in the beginning is if it doesn't give you a return immediately, you're not going to buy it. So land sits there, so there's no return. No one's living on it.
oh yeah. And with large parcels of land, you actually have to be in it for the long term because, I mean, you have to get all types of licenses. You have to get engineers involved. You know, and
Right.
and it may take a year before you're able to break ground and build something. But if you buy, like I said, but there are companies and people out there, and that's what they do. They develop, and then once they develop, like you said, instead of selling one house at a time or one lot at a time, they sell whole subdivisions.
Right.
And there are
So
people out
that's a
there,
good thing.
and there are people out
Yeah.
there that I have buyers right now that are looking for. They always tell me if you got 4 or 5 lots on the same street, that's what I want. you know.
Oh, so that they could have, okay. And that's a good strategy too, because then you actually can drive the price per square foot. So a lot of companies, actually hedge funds would buy in
Oh yeah.
subdivisions just so that they can control the price per square foot as it went up or down. They're trying to drive the prices up so that
Mhm.
they benefit. They can control that more or less, and what the exit strategy is as well.
Exactly.
That's something that's really really good strategy.
Yeah, and if
So
they want to build a houses, they're close. I mean, it's best like if you're going to build 3 houses, if you build them back to back to back, that's more effective than or more efficient than 3 different neighborhoods.
right, yeah, you can scale. That's right. So, what are your goals for this year in regards to wholesaling?
Well, number one, I plan to exit, my job completely and concentrate on everything full time. Uh, Wholesaling will still be a part of my business, but I want to really, and also JVN, but I want to lean more toward actually seller financing land and also some rentals. Because now that I'm older, I'm thinking more about retirement. And so I'm thinking about, okay, how can I, what kind of business I could create for myself that I could run when I'm 80 years old. And this is one that I can do that, once I, put the pieces in place now. Um, I mean, the sky's the limit. So basically, in a nutshell, I want to change my strategy, go more towards buy and hold and seller finance.
Right. But now the benefit is you can generate the actual find yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So you have the skills
Right.
because you joint ventured and learned how to wholesale to
Exactly.
acquire your own properties at a
Exactly.
discount.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why this is important, is because I think with joint venturing, a lot of people don't really think in that direction. They think they have to only take their own deals down. And one thing I wanted you to highlight, and I'm glad we talked about, is how you were able to effectively work with wholesalers because they
Mhm.
want the help as well, right? Because a little bit of something's better than a whole lot of nothing. So if you can
Exactly.
work
And
with
I'm gonna tell
someone
you
and get
because of
50%.
yeah, because if you try to take a deal, let's say start to finish acquisition or disposition, sometimes you could get so stuck on that one deal that you don't you stop your acquisitions and you stop acquiring them. But a lot of time, a lot of people, let's say for instance, to do acquisition, they don't want to do any disposition. They say, the only thing I want to do is just get properties under contract and hand them off. I'd rather do that and get half of the assignment fee than to do one and get stuck on it and spend a lot of time on it. And sometimes it still don't close. So it's just based, and then especially if you're a small organization, I mean, it's best to choose what part you want to do in a business.
That's good. So, Bernard, I mean, thank you so much for being on our podcast, Real Estate for Life, and
Oh,
also
absolutely. Thanks for
started the
having me.
meetings again, the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group at dallasreig.com.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about owner financing. Also, we're going to be talking about buy and hold. As you know, we do new construction. So that's another thing when you're talking about land. Like I've told you, near and dear to my heart is, and when you get those land deals, make sure you run those by me. Uh,
Absolutely. I
and
will.
anyone else who's out there that wants to actually sell a deal or get help, Bernard is actually someone that can help you sell your opportunity as well. And that's why
Absolutely.
we want to collaborate because it's really, really important that all of us understand that we are way more efficient working together than we are by ourselves.
Exactly.
And we have to get into that mindset. And
Exactly.
it's tough to do just because typically you get paid once, you get paid by yourself, but you don't really see the whole journey as a team. And like I said, you can get 50%. And now, if you think about it, 50% is quite a bit. If you're selling $200,000 properties or transitioning those. Uh,
Exactly.
so that's a nice chunk of change for working together. So I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. You're near and dear to our heart here, and we're gonna have you back because I think one of the things we want to talk about and maybe take a deeper dive is into the actual
Mhm.
systems. Like you talked about PropStream and the other acquisition strategies and different systems. We might talk
Oh,
about
sure.
those if you don't mind,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I think people would like to see, what's out there.
The nuts and bolts
You
and
mentioned
how I,
Propelio
right?
as well. So Propelio is actually someone that we work with as well. So I'd like to highlight those too. So,
Okay.
but anyway, you're doing well. I really like your goals. congratulations on your daughters. Wow, she's getting her doctorate.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I will say go Air Force because we're both Air Force.
That's right.
Right. So we're both Air Force. So that's a really, really good thing. But we transitioned into real estate. And,
Exactly.
the one thing I'll say is you really are encouraging and, with your attitude, like you said to everybody, is don't give up. I want people to know that we're resources. So when you have
Mhm.
something that you can actually um, think you have the opportunity to work on, run
Right.
it by us, and come visit us, collaborate with us, network with us.
Absolutely.
One thing I wanted to mention, the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group meets the first Saturday and third Saturday of every month. And so we want to make sure that you can attend there. And also, we will be in the field doing real world events. But we want to help everyone be successful because you can. We also think that this next 3 years or so is going to be, get back to way more opportunities just because of the marketplace. And so I think you're going to do really well. I mean, just keep up your marketing and sell
Oh,
me a couple of those deals too. By the way, I want something.
okay.
So
Gotcha.
again, it's Bernard Barron. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
This
Joe.
podcast is Real Estate for Life, so that you can actually enhance your life through real estate transactions and learning the business the right way. Again, we are at the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group um, every month, and so we want you to attend. And we will talk to you next time. And I believe that we're going to start doing series with different people like Bernard so that you can actually learn a little bit more detail in what they're doing so it'll help you in your business. So thanks, Bernard, and we'll be
Hey, thank
talking to you
you.
soon.